Wrestling Radio Show. We've got an exciting guest on today. He was a two-time state champ out of the state of Texas, two-time prep All-American. He made sure to let us know that he was a graduate of the United States MAPS 1989 class, West Point class of 93, All-American, All-Army freestyle champion in 96. He's now retired, and he's a head wrestling coach at St. Mark's School of Texas in Dallas. He works with K all the way through 12th grade. And he's working on some cool stuff on the side that he just talked to us about with being the president and CEO of Trust Consulting LLC, and he's working on a doctorate at Liberty. We got on Reynold Arredondo.
Hey guys,
welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Man, am I excited! Thank you. I got to tell you, Army wrestling is so ingrained in my blood. I just it's exciting, and thank you for reaching out to me. You just shot me up with a good shot of B12.
Heck yeah.
No, I'm excited for this. It's funny because you were at West Point right before I got there, and then you got back right after I left. So I hear all these stories, and then you're always on the happy hours with Coach Ward, and everybody's gravitated towards you, and you're very, very charismatic. I'm excited for what's ahead in the next 45 minutes to an hour or so.
Hoorah, hoorah! I'm glad to be here.
Well, you're back in your home state of Texas, where you won 2 state titles. You're at your alma mater, which is cool. I think that's probably every high school kid's dream, is to grow up and come back. That's awesome. Right now on the Army West Point team, we probably got half a team from different states across the country. We're a diverse team. But back when you were in the early 90s, talk about just how hard it was to get exposure being from Texas and what that recruiting process looked like.
Yeah, actually, my teammates are like, "Where are you from? You have wrestling there?" No, it was actually the majority of my teammates are from New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin. I mean, they're all Midwest, Iowa. I mean, and I was definitely an anomaly. The one thing that helped me out was I was prior service before going to USMAPs. And when I was my prior service year, I actually got stationed at Fort Ord, California, and got scooped up to be on the wrestling team at Fort Ord. So as a private first class, I was actually doing half days, and I think he was on the division staff. He was like in the G3 shop, and he pulled me off to do extra duty, and all I would do is help him run the wrestling team and wrestle with other soldiers. So anyway, that kind of got me going pretty well. And then going to the prep school, I mean, wow, that's a great year. So I'm a big advocate of USMAPs, especially now that it's on campus and they have the club program where you can actually wrestle with the team.
They got it going on now.
Yeah. So did you, so when you came into the prep school from prior service, like how did that transition? Did your company commander say, I see potential in this guy? Was that like traditional route, or was it wrestling related in that at all?
Well, I actually, there's a story. My actual, I wanted to go to West Point. I knew I did. Actually, OU and West Point were the 2 schools. When I went to OU, I just didn't feel it. And so I knew that West Point was what I wanted to do. And my head wrestling coach at St. Mark's knew the All-Army wrestling coach at the time. His name was Floyd Winters. And he called Floyd, and Floyd was like, "Look, it's a long shot, it's not a long shot, but if he enlists into the Army, finishes his basic training, his AIT, and gets to his duty station, I'll pick him up for the All-Army team. And then he can try and go, he can apply for the prep school or for West Point from the All-Army wrestling program." Anyway, when I was in basic training, there was about...
I'm remembering bits of the story now that I've heard before, and this is just crazy to me. No kid would ever fall for this today.
That's like the most backdoor way to get into prep school. It's like, just join the Army.
These kids won't even go to
we're
class
gonna get
sometimes.
you
And you're like,
into
yeah,
prep
listen, you're like, okay.
I'm glad there's some levity to this because I mean, oh my. Anyway, they did. They fed me the good one, and I did it. I mean, and it wound up in basic training. There was a handful of us that got selected to fill out paperwork for the prep school, and 3 of us actually got orders for the prep school. And I wound up. One of my classmates. We were together. Well, we were in a cohort unit as soldiers. So we did basic training AIT. We went to Fort Ord together, and then we went to the prep school in West Point together. And then we both got stationed at Fort Ord together. He was a pilot, and I was intel, and he wound up being in my brigade because he was a fixed wing pilot flying intels. Anyway, yeah, no, I did the enlisted route to prep school, and it worked.
Crazy.
So you come into West Point. There's obviously lots of studs around that time. You know, we had Colonel Dave Warnick on the show. You know, he talked a lot about that coming in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, recently in the past decade, we've coined the term BHAW to personify, you know, what Army wrestling means now. Like, what was the identity of the program back then, and like in your opinion?
Well, so we were just a bunch of brutes. I mean, wow. We in my class in '93. I don't know if Dave talked to you about it. There was about 11 of us in that class that actually made the team and then stayed on the team for 4 years. And that's a lot for one class. I mean, normally, I don't know how many you guys had, but anywhere from 4 to 7 is about the norm, I would think, for a recruiting class.
Yeah, it's funny. We had, like, one of the first episodes when we had Coach Ward on, we kind of came across that, you know, I think the most recent class had like 12 or 13 guys, 14 guys stay on, and it's like the closest class. And that's like a really good gauge to see how good the culture of a program is, to see how many kids from each class like stay together. I feel like
no, and actually that's truly what happened. I mean, our motto back then was ready for battle, and wow, we put it on each other in practices like crazy. I mean, and our class coming in, I don't want to say this to sound bad, and I'm not trying to put down any of the other classes, but when we came in as plebes, we kind of cleaned house. And over the next, our plebe and yearling year, some of the upperclassmen kind of took off because they were like, I'm not going to keep going down the roster. I mean, and so it was kind of a trip to have all of us stay in for so long, and really, we were just tough as nails in the practice room. Our one issue is that we also were very social. So in hindsight, it would have been awesome if we weren't as social as we. But no, actually, we will probably never change what we did. It happened and it worked.
So it was a work hard, play hard mentality.
I'm going to remember the early part of that when you're talking about the class of 92 and 91. If we have any of those folks on, I'm going to be like, hey, class of 93 was talking smack a little bit. You guys don't have as many guys around. So what's the deal?
No, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. No, I'm just kidding. It was pretty amazing. And here's kind of the funny part of it. Like I said, I'm the only one from Texas. Now there's like 7 or 8 of these guys from Jersey, Iowa, New York, Pennsylvania. They all live here in Texas now. And they've been living in Texas ever since we were lieutenants. It's just the craziest thing in the world. It's pretty neat because really we get together for Army, Navy, and or for something good. And I mean, it's pretty cool because our Army network is still here.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. So talking about some of those shenanigans, David Warnick was saying some of them. Many seem to happen at the Sunshine Open for some reason. But can you give us some insight into some more of the savagery that you guys got into?
Oh man. Well, my wife is here, and no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, I thought that I made the team because I wasn't afraid of talking to girls, and and when Coach Effner was like, "Hey, I like this guy. He's going to be our social element to keep everybody kind of on a good roll here." No, uh, well, first off, making that trip was pretty monumental because that meant you were a traveling dude. And so going as a cow and firstie, uh, it was pretty fun because, you know, we were going to Tampa. We were at MacDill Air Force Base, right on the water, and there are plenty of nice little clubs just outside. So the work hard, play hard. The great part of that tournament was we got there, worked out, weighed in, wrestled, and then for the next week and a half, we were just training.
Yeah.
all aspects of training going on.
That's funny. Well, I got Ready for Battle written down. Maybe we'll have to do a throwback T-shirt.
Ready for battle.
That'd be cool.
That's it. Yes. Well, you got to see how guys' abs were and what they could do and how they could produce.
There we go.
Lots of fun.
So after West Point, you branched military intelligence. You're the first MI officer we've had on the show. Speak to the opportunities and maybe some of the experiences out there for Army officers looking, for that path maybe outside the norm.
Well, okay, so let me give you a little background. So as a soldier, I was a 13 Bravo. I was a field artilleryman. And so I had kind of, at West Point, I was thinking about doing FA and then branch detailing into MI. And back then I thought MI meant Mexican infantry. So I had no clue what I was really getting into. No, I'm just kidding. What I saw was a lot of my professors in the language department were intel officers. They had been attaches. I mean, they had had some pretty cool adventures in their careers, and something clicked in me that said, you know what, I like that, because if I didn't make the Army a career, my plan was to go into the FBI or to the CIA. And I was going to use my language skills and my goofy skills to be able to work basically human intelligence, counterintelligence, all that kind of business. And it wound up working. I mean, two things came of that is I chose Intel. I wound up being a counterintelligence officer, human source operations, and interrogations. I mean, that's I mean, just hearing that, it's kind of cool business.
Well, everyone thinks just like nerd. And it's not necessarily, there's more stuff out there than just the nerd stuff.
No, there is. No, I mean, and well, I did command in a SIGINT kind of comms nerdy command, but that was, I mean, Intel has so many different areas to it. And then as much as you want to plug in, you can plug in. I mean, I was a S2 for an MP battalion as a second lieutenant. And then I was an S2 as a captain for an infantry battalion. Yeah. And so those were two very different types of units, but wicked cool experiences. I mean, really. And then I think really I got to send a lot of my soldiers to be with the special ops. So one of the things that we were constantly doing throughout my entire career was supporting Special Operations Command. So it would not be uncommon that we would have soldiers, doing conventional deployments, as well as a whole nother group or team doing special ops.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things from the intel world that's pretty cool. I mean, and of course, you think, well, are they special forces tab dudes? No, they were intel guys who had a special skill set that could plug in with the SF teams and provide, or be back in a skiff doing the other stuff that we do, for supporting the warfighter. And it's pretty cool. I mean, there are some nerdy pieces to intel, but to see it in action is pretty amazing. It really is.
Yeah, I wish especially for like MI positions like that, because the way West Point's obviously works is you branch and then you post. But in those specific opportunities, you'd want to know which slots are available in MI before you go to that branch, because that may impact what you want to do.
Yeah, and then really, you can set yourself up by what post you want to go to. Depending on the post is how big it is. If you go to one of the cores, you're going to have multiple opportunities to succeed.
Yeah.
And then, not just, I'm not trying to say anything about being male versus female, but, and because the dynamic has changed a little bit now, but back in my day, if you were male, you had the opportunity to go to the infantry units, and the females didn't. And that was pretty cool. And not all of the male intel officers were volunteering to go to the infantry units. And yeah, that was awesome. I mean, I had the best time in my infantry battalion S2 job.
Yeah. Well, no shame. We got 2 S1s on here.
So you had mentioned in your when you added stuff into your introduction, like wrestling, coaching at Fort Hood, at out in Hawaii, Fort Leavenworth with the kids program, West Point with the kids program. Talk a little about that, and like kind of like how you got. Was it like a same theme that like you just got to a place and you're like, all right, I'm gonna make shit happen. Pardon my French, listeners.
No, that's it. Actually, we're wired in a good way. And there's a couple things that I always wanted to do whenever I went somewhere, and that was either get into some kind of program where I'm helping the youth at the church, or wrestling. And I actually played soccer too. So I would coach soccer and wrestling basically everywhere I went, just because, then it kept me on the mat too. And I mean, wrestling has done so much for me as a person. I mean, just think about it. When you were a young man, you started setting goals that you wanted to win districts, regions, state. You wanted to qualify for nationals. You started thinking about all this stuff, and then you actually started achieving those goals. Well, those things freaking crept into you, and you worked hard. And so you weren't averse to freaking making things happen and actually grinding to make sure they happen. Anyway, I always felt the need to give back. Well, ironically, almost every time I would move to a new post, the last coach just left. And there was always a vacancy. So I'd be going maybe just to go and wrestle, and they'd be like, "Hey, Lieutenant, the coach just left. Will you be the coach?" And then, "Hey, Captain, the coach just left. Will you be the coach?" And so it just kept going like that. And, I'm grateful for it too, because then when I retired out of the Army, I had continued, and then we started doing, it's basically wrestling. And so that became part of my identity in the Army too. And so it even went a little bit further, because I started actually helping guys in the MMA world. I mean, in the UFC. I got actually one guy that I worked with my last round at Fort Hood. His name is Jeff Hands of Steel Neal. And if you haven't heard him, he is 8th in UFC right now. He just signed a contract to fight December 19th in Vegas against Wonder Boy. So Wonder Boy's ranked 5th in UFC at the I think they're at welterweight, and so they're going at it, and it's going to be kind of cool.
Well, he's got a heck of a name.
Jeff Hands of Steel Neal, and he's here in Dallas now, which is really kind of cool. I mean, it's I just wow, and you know what I would help any of these MMA guys with is the wrestling, the takedowns and control and whatnot, and that's been pretty neat, especially being an older dude, man. I mean, it's kept me in the fight, and I mean, wow, how crazy. I mean, to be in the fight, it never hurts. And so all this stuff helped me to get the job that I have now, which is, I can't believe, man, I'm coaching at my old high school. I mean, oh man. And they're paying me too. I mean,
All comes full circle.
It is. It's full circle.
You still rolling with those guys?
Oh, yes, sir. I sure do. Well, right now we're kind of in a COVID hold pattern. So I have devised, we have a workout now that have you heard of the shot sleds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
we had a couple of my club in North Carolina.
Yeah, we got shot sleds and throwing dummies all the way from 20-pound throwing dummies to 170-pound throwing dummies. So we do a mixture now just because we can't do any contact until after Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, we'll be going on. But yes, I scrap. I don't scrap as much, but I love working technique and drilling. Drilling is the key to successful wrestling, and if I can show them how to drill well, it's on. And actually, it's been kind of fun. One of the things I think I told you guys, doing this Greco-Roman stuff. I didn't do Greco as a young man, so don't think I'm some kind of Greco dude, because I didn't do Greco until I went to the Army team, and I got my butt handed to me. But I learned enough to where I'm like, man, this is fantastic to add to your wrestling skills. So being in Texas, when you start doing some Russian ties and some underhooks, overhooks, these kids start bailing out. And so my guys,
2-on-1 where I'm from, we don't give the Russians credit.
yeah, there you go. I call it the Texas tie.
I like that. That's good. I like that.
Everything's like, okay, what are Texas twists, coach? And they're like, oh, they're formerly known as Russian twists. And then, anyway, but yeah, no, my boys have seen it over the last few years, how doing our I just call it upper body work, our upper body takedowns. Our upper body takedowns help our guys dominate on the feet. I mean, and of course, we're putting just as much time with the doubles and single legs, high C's, all that stuff. But when you start grabbing a dude, underhooking him, it makes a difference. Here in Texas, it does.
Yeah.
I had a young man qualified last year for prep nationals, and he was a sophomore that won state here, and he's a big boy, 195-pounder. And then we went up to Lehigh, and he started trying to pummel. And it wasn't the same. It didn't get the same response that it used to. We got 2 and out on that run. So
live and you learn.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I remember you doing some Greco stuff, because I was going to ask you this too. We talked about this when we interviewed my brother. Do you remember, this is when you were at West Point and me and my brother were training for NCAAs. We got in a huge fight. And the reason I bring it up is because they were like, they were like, Jordan, you're with Coach, and they're like, Casey, you're with Coach. Jordan, you're with Colonel Arredondo, and I was like, all right. And you were trying to make me pummel, and I was so pissed off. I was like, I just want to cut weight. Leave me alone. And
I was like, nope.
No.
I do remember that.
That was
You guys, that's brotherly love right there, baby. I gotta tell you, you guys were good for each other. I mean, when I reflect back on my time as an OR, I think about the brothers that have come through West Point and
a lot, yeah.
Casey and the Simpsons. I mean, I think there's still Simpsons coming through the pipeline too, man.
There'll be Simpsons coming through the pipeline for the next 50 years.
Forever, yeah.
I mean, and I sent you Rob Harris. So Rob had an older brother too that was a few years ahead of us. But anyway, that's always special when you have brothers that come through the rank. I mean, look at NC State. Don't they have some twins that are over there that are both?
They're not twins, but they're brothers. I think they're a year apart.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I think they are a year apart. My first year, I inherited a pretty good stud at St. Mark's. He's now a junior at Harvard. He's wrestling for Harvard.
Oh, nice.
I mean, yeah, they just got told that they won't be having a wrestling year. So he's thinking about, taking a gap year and then restarting because he's been doing some real good stuff. Anyway, I have his younger brother. It's the Tucker and Cooper Ridman. And Cooper's a senior. And, yeah, it's going to be tough if we can't go to prep nationals because he'd be an All-American for me, and he would help. Actually, I could potentially have if we're able to train and do our stuff this year at St. Mark's, I could have 2 to 4 All-Americans going out of Lehigh prep nationals. So we'll see. And I've been pushing Army. But right now, I actually that young man that went to prep nationals last year. He likes West Point. He likes what's going on there. He's a great football player, and so really he's our running back and inside linebacker, and so that's kind of his first love is football. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of one of the things I wanted to get into next, which was you have a really interesting kind of perspective on recruiting and just seeing the academy from the inside out. So you went back in 2003 to 2005 and you were an academy instructor. And then you were back 2010, 2015, more on like the ODIA side. So you really have a little bit of experience in everything that is West Point. And I've heard you talk on it once before, but I'm interested to get it on the show. Like, what is your perspective? You worked a lot with the football team and operations, and I know you saw the recruiting and some of the challenge there. What's your perspective on communicating the experience and the opportunity that is West Point to a high school kid? And then how do we continue to grow that so we can jump to the next level?
Well, one of the first things is, and it's kind of funny because I almost get the sense that at this kind of point in where we are historically, that the kids right now don't have as much of a zest to go into the military. I could be wrong, but I'm just talking because I talk to the boys on my team, and actually, I just got interviewed by one of the kids on our school paper staff, and the whole reason that he was interviewing me was because he wanted to add and shed some light about a military experience, because he knows that his generation doesn't look at the military that much. Anyway, the one thing that we have at West Point especially is the leadership development dimension. I mean, and so wrestlers that want that, and actually athletes that want to plug into leadership and actually get a great degree, an international an internationally recognized degree
Yeah, that's
come
right.
to West Point. And one of the things that is good about these younger generations is that they understand that more than probably we did or than I did when I was a kid. Because I didn't see it as globally as West Point truly is. I mean, and I say that because having gone, I did a summer semester abroad in Spain, and when I went there as a cadet, I didn't tell anybody that I was from West Point. I just said I was from Texas, and well, midway through it, after hitting the tapas and cervezas.
You were living your best life that semester.
Well, while my teammates were at Lake Placid training, that was the flip side. Coach Effner wasn't happy with that decision, but I sure was. Anyway, when I told them that I because they were asking me like, well, where do you go to school? And I said West Point. I mean, really, the group that I was with, from the school that I was with, stopped, and everybody in the bar stopped, and they were like, "You go to West Point?" I mean, and next thing I know, for the rest of the time I was there, every time
everybody,
man, it was just the craziest. And then I fast forward. We're in Thailand. I'm a captain, and we're doing training with the Thai Army, and we're doing our stuff, and they wound up wanting to know more about intel than anything else. So really, because I was in an infantry battalion at the time, so the infantry officers just were like, okay, so they just kicked back, and so the seminar turned into an intel thing. Anyway, then they were same thing. They were like, well, where did you go to school? And I was like, well, West Point. Oh my God. I mean, and then actually, then they found out that our battalion commander was from West Point. 3 of the company commanders were from West Point. I mean, they were just like, wow, this is just the coolest ever. I mean, anyway.
Speaking of Thailand, since you brought it up, didn't you do some training there or something? Like some Muay Thai or something?
That's where I got
They just call it Muay there.
Muay Thai.
Just Muay, yeah.
Muay Thai, just Muay in Thailand.
And I got, oh my God, talk about, I love that piece. Oh, and so when
you like underground, like doing some kickboxing, like movie stuff? What were you doing?
No underground. Well, the one thing that they didn't, their soldiers would not fight any of us. I mean, even though we weren't all skilled, they were like, no. Well, because our bone structures are totally different. Yeah. I mean, if we were to kick one of those dudes, it'd be totally different because, they're just a lot skinnier and different. Anyway, that's where I fell in love with Muay Thai kickboxing. And I still train whenever I can on that as well.
That's pretty cool.
Well, when I've seen recruits that actually athletes that want to come to West Point, the turning factor is where are we at in combat operations, and what is it that their parents think about combat operations. So, as you know, for a while, we weren't beating Air Force and Navy, and they were beating us in the recruiting war because we were fighting the wars. I mean, and so what was amazing at that point in time in our kind of Army was that I was serving under General Raymond Odierno. And if you don't, I'm going to give you a quick history piece on this because this is freaking cool and it actually worked. General Raymond Odierno was my corps commander in Iraq, and then he was the multinational forces commander. Then he wound up being the chief of staff of the Army. Yep. And when he became the chief of staff of the Army, he said, okay, this is bullshit. Because the Army needs to propel the idea that we're going to win everywhere, not just in combat, but we're going to win, especially if we're going to be playing football and whatever other sport, we're going to win. And not that we're going to do it in an undermining way to, pull it, just go ahead and bring down the standards. No, not at all. But we're going to do it and it's going to happen. Well, one of the big things that that started changing, I'm going to talk about football in particular, is that the head coach said, okay, I'm going to start bringing in bigger boys, because really the linemen were getting killed. And it wasn't because they were bad football players. It's just that they were losing about 50 to 80 pounds when they went up against guys like from Ohio State, from Oklahoma, from freaking Michigan. You know, that's a huge difference. Anyway, one of the parts that kept head coaches from wanting to bring in bigger boys is because they did not want to have them, bless you, they did not want them to fail at meeting all of the requirements of being a cadet. So it wasn't that they had bad intentions. They had freaking great intentions. They didn't want to make our cadets seem anything different. Well, kids nowadays are a lot bigger, faster, and they can do all the things, you know, the IOCT, the pull-ups, everything that were required. So Jeff Monken has done a great job of getting over that hurdle and bringing in bigger boys to help out. And then it, you know, when you start winning, guess what? People like that shit. I mean, everybody wants to be around a winner. Come on now.
That's right. Yeah. It's definitely interesting, and I would love to see a study or somebody that's much smarter than me obviously do it. But I think if we were to look at the recruiting classes of the last 10 years in terms of wrestling, I think we've had a higher quality of recruit come in the last 10 years than we have in the past. And I know enough of the kids to know that now in their military careers, I think we have a higher amount serving in infantry, armor, and specifically special operations. I mean, I can't even name the number of people that are in the soft community right now. So it's definitely interesting. It's just hard to get a parent to see. And I see parents on Twitter, and I try to route them to BHAW to hear some of these cool stories from everybody that's been through it. It's like, it's not what you think it is.
Well, so let me go back just a little bit more, because there was a reason I was bringing up General Reynold, because that's another piece of this that was super important, is that the leadership from the top had to also believe in the vision and turning that whole paradigm around of being okay with losing in athletics. Okay. And there's nothing that says that you have to lose and be part of West Point. That's, you know what I mean? Come on now. Actually, it was better in my mind that General Odierno said, no, we're changing this up because our soldiers deserve it. Our soldiers, you know, want to look on Saturday morning, or if they're deployed and they're watching Army play whoever, they don't want to see a team Army lose. Come on, man. No way. Well, so not only did he make this part of his mission, well, he also backed it up. He brought in a guy like General Bob Caslin as the soup, who came in, had a former football player, and really gave him the mission. And he said, okay, tell me what you need. And I don't know if you guys have had any interaction or have read any of the leadership books of General Bob Caslin, but that dude's a badass. And not only a badass because of how he is, but he's just an authentic servant leader extraordinaire. That's pretty big. Authentic and servant leadership is freaking, those are the two top types of leadership. Okay, the transformational piece is part of that as well. But so when he came in, he had to also create a new culture at West Point. And what was that culture? That culture that said being a Division I athlete was just as important as being a cadet and being a freaking a budding leader on campus. And so those two things run parallel, or I mean they're part of each other. I mean, there's a whole reason that MacArthur said his, on the fields of friendly strife business, because that made everything tangible about leadership on the athletic field. And so when General Caslin came in, he did a great job of getting buy-in from the academics, because that's part of it as well. The academics, the deans had to say, yeah, this is part of it. Well, he didn't give them, an old Jedi trick. But by the time you knew it, they were on board with supporting, Army athletics. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Well, we're definitely seeing the fruits of the labor now.
Yeah. And what you're also seeing, just like you pointed out, is that athletes are coming in and they are more bought in and helping our ranks out in the Army. Actually, it was kind of funny because my last job, I was a G2 of the 13th Expeditionary Sustainment Command. And when I got there, the sergeant major, he was, my commander was a general, was a brigadier general. And so my sergeant major was like, hey, I heard you ran football at Army. And I was like, yes, Sergeant Major. And we're here in this big, we're having a big ass staff meeting. And he says this, and I go, yes, Sergeant Major. And he goes, well, why are we always losing? And I was like, are you kidding me, dude? Are you really saying this right now, right in front of me? I wanted to blow up. I go, Sergeant Major, if our primary responsibility was to win football games for you, then we'd be probably a different academy. I go, but trust me, you are gonna start seeing a difference. And holy crap, this is the best part of it, is that was like Monken's second year. So, we wound up just kicking everybody's tail. And it was funny because I just remained very humble. And every week we would come back to our staff meeting and, we had just beat somebody else.
And you were just like, thank you, St. Monken.
No, but to do it right is even better. And then what that does is that it's that self-licking ice cream. So now, studs that are out there that want to go to the best academy, because West Point's the best academy and everybody knows it. But if you want to fly jets, or if you want to be in a sub or whatever, then you can't do that with us. But if you want to lead and you want to then, lead soldiers and or lead anything, then you come to West Point. And so to see it all happening the way it is so freaking awesome. But now listen too, here's what happened. After General Caslin left, well, now you have General Williams there, who's also a former football player. So the precedence has been set. You're always going to now, not always, but pretty much. You're going to have an athlete as your leadership, because if you don't, you're going to turn things around lickety split. And all it takes is one commander to turn things around. Let's keep praying, baby, because and here, don't make any bones about it. Kevin Ward has embraced the academy and what we stand for, and he's been able to also share that with the kids that he's talking to, and he's bought in. We are blessed to have a guy like Kevin Ward at the helm there. We've had some really good coaches throughout the years there at West Point. But what makes him different, and I saw this right away, is that he also sees the dynamics that the wrestlers go through, and is willing to pull back and or release and or push at the right time. And to see him actually get his, what did we have? 7 guys qualified for NCAAs last year. Oh, what a kick in the teeth that it got shut down, because that really showed manifested what he's been doing with Army wrestling. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I use this all the time for the way I go with my teams is one of the first, I think it was the first 2-3 months, he was the wrestling coach there and I was an OR. The guys came in, and you know what it's like when you've had a freaking Thayer week and you just been freaking ragged and you've been cutting weight. I mean, and you've been just freaking gone through the ringer, and maybe your girlfriend's mad at you and went out on a date with somebody else back home, and you're like, what? I mean, just everything seems to be horrible. Well, I remember walking into a practice. It was probably a Tuesday or Wednesday, and Coach Ward just looked at everybody's faces and was like, what in the world? I mean, I could see his algorithm going. And he's like, all right, guys, let's go. We're going to warm up, and then I'm going to cut you loose. And the guys looked at each other, and they were like, he was like, come on, let's go. Let's warm up before I change my mind. And literally they warmed up for about 15, 20 minutes. And he said, get out of here. Go do whatever it is you got to do to get better.
Yeah.
And holy crap. The next day they came back and those guys were charged up and okay. Anyway, fast forward now to where I'm at St. Mark's. St. Mark's is it's an all-boy private school that, oh man, it's a tough school. Academics are wicked. Well, I saw those faces on my boys the first year I was there. And I did the same thing. And by gum, it freaking worked. They were like, oh my gosh, coach is freaking awesome. And so, I mean, I do it now. I'm like, hey, okay, you let me know when you got heavy workloads, let me know that, because I don't want to press you when you got everything going on. So here, this is kind of cool. I'll go ahead and brag on my team, not me. So I got 6 seniors. 5 out of my 6 seniors on my wrestling program are national merit semifinalists.
Wow.
5. Holy crap. 5.
Brainiacs.
I got 3 kids. Listen to this. I got 1 kid. He's my lightweight. Oh my God. He is so skinny. He maxed the SAT and the ACT. Maxed them both. And then my 26 pounder, he maxed the ACT and he just missed a couple questions off SAT. And then my Cooper Ribman, the boy that's going to Harvard, who will be going to Harvard, he missed the SAT by 1 question, maxing it. I mean, wow. Holy crap.
That's crazy. They're either wicked smart or their parents are in on that scheme I saw in 2020. Because I don't understand how that's possible, but hey.
No, I mean,
congratulations to them. That's good.
Well, here's what's cool is that now we're going back to what a true Greco-Roman wrestler is about. I mean, because think about it. Wrestling was arguably one of the first sports ever. And the Greeks and the Romans were getting it on, and they were, or at least from what we've been told, they're pretty smart cats. So I like thinking that we're a smart breed, as well as we're smart and dumb.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about some of this a little bit, especially at the change in the athletic department. You know, graduating 93, coming back like 10 years later, then going away, then coming back 10 years later after that. You know, what were some of the other changes you saw at the academy from like when you graduated to like incremental things? Or was there anything else that like kind of sticks out other than the Army athletics component?
I mean, well, let me just say some of the changes. The
death
big
of
change
the
that I
cap,
saw
of the Garrison cap.
the
Death of the Garrison cap. Yeah.
Covering that flow Jordan's got going on.
I did that in honor of him shaving my head.
You never know that this guy Jordan was still in the Army.
I know. Exactly.
Working on Wall Street.
He's got he understands. He's put it in tight.
Listen, as long as it looks good, you know.
Under the cap, as long as under the hat, you're looking good.
It's fine.
Or under the beret, nobody's going to get on you. Sergeant Major won't be eyeballing you.
That's right.
Anyway, no, the one big thing that I saw over time that the cadets, all cadets, do more than anything else, they do a lot more military training than when I was there. Another piece of it is, even though it apparently seems they have a little bit more flexibility, there's not as much crazy structure, they have more things to do on a normal basis. So I mean, and so it's almost like, okay, we're going to relax some of the, hazing, because it's no longer hazing, it's development program. We're going to develop you more. But dude, I got to tell you, cadets are constantly working. They got so much to do on a daily basis. And that's pretty cool, because what you're doing is substituting getting either yelled at or, having to clean or walk funny with pushing the mental acuity of these guys. So from a Jedi development, if you will, we're placing more midichlorians in their head. And so it's kind of cool. I mean, it really is. And so I taught Spanish as a captain major, but then when I came back and I was working in athletics, my last year I got to teach leadership. And I taught a course called Leading Organizations Through Change. It was a first E class. I think it was like PL 497 or something like. Anyway, it was nothing but firsties, and we were talking. It was business model changes, and man, it was just impressive to see these cats read. Because I got to tell you, just me preparing daily, I was like, man, I was spending a lot of time, and to know that these guys were juggling 4 or 5 different classes, and then whatever chain of command stuff that they had, and then the athletes, and then coming in and, giving me briefings like they were, I was like, man, this is freaking on. It really is. And so it's pretty neat to see kind of not that it's a huge, crazy paradigm shift on cadets not having to toe the line. No, don't get me wrong. That's not it. But the intentionality of things is just a lot more streamlined, and it's kind of cool. Because it helps the development of the cadets a lot more. And then athletics. I mean, from the athletic standpoint, well, just with communications, the way they are now. I mean, and being able to reach out and touch people, and then you have your Twitters, and you have all the other media outlets. I mean, Army athletics is out everywhere, and it's pretty cool. It really is. And I mean, literally when I was there, it was rare. I mean, that you'd be walking down the street, and there's hey, there's what's that? What's that A stand for? You go to Appalachian State?
I was going to say, I was like, living in North Carolina, I mean, I see the Army A all the time, and it's always Appalachian. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Anyway, it has definitely changed. I mean, it also helps for the recruiting, because, well, the dynamic of being able to stay in contact and reach kids from all across the country is a lot easier than before. I mean, and even now, even with COVID, the coaches can at least do Zooms or whatever they can. They can have virtual type of discussions and whatnot with them. I mean,
there's new things for them to pitch. Did you hear about Highland Falls? It's on the up and up.
What's that?
Highland Falls is on the up and up. Hacienda going out of business. Chipotle's in town. Let's go.
That's what I've been eating tonight. I've had Chipotle.
It's flipping crazy.
In my new house, I've had Chipotle probably, well, at least every single day. Most days I've had it for lunch and dinner.
Game changer, man.
Because
Man, I need to move up to Highland Falls.
you go chicken, you go beef, you
I
go
would have been
veggie
crushing it
with
every day,
tortilla.
probably.
Without.
Well, here's a little life hack for all the
Take my
listeners.
cadet account. I don't care. Give me all the burritos.
Hey, here's a little life hack for all the cadets out there who are listening in. So they only charge you for extra chicken, like the extra protein, but you get extra rice, extra beans, extra salsa, extra lettuce. This thing weighs like twice as much, and you're getting all these extra like carbs and calories that you need, and you're not paying a dime extra for it. I pick up this little bag, and I'm like, this is highway robbery right here. $7. Boom.
That's
It's
not
like
where I thought you were going with it. I thought you were going to tell them one day when they're in corporate America and they're in charge of the meals for their business, they should put it on their rewards card for Chipotle.
Oh, that's a little side thing. I got both my lunch and dinner for free today because I have so many rewards from
There you
lunch
go.
catering.
Well, I'm glad to see Highland Falls is accepting a little bit of outward help, because that is pretty big.
That's awesome.
This episode is brought to you by Chipotle. They owe us not there too.
Yeah.
Olay.
Well, I guess that means, what was it? American Burritos probably.
American burrito's gone.
Shout out Austin Wilding, got his mural painted on there. First ever cadet to eat the 5-pound burrito in less than 3 minutes or 30 minutes. Well, last question we got for you. You mentioned his name. Who do you want to hear from around your time area that you want to get on the show, and why?
Okay, well, there's a couple actually. So from my actual time near me was a guy named Rob Harris. Rob was a year behind me, and he actually was really close with our class. And well, one, he's a Pennsylvania boy who just wrestled like a champ. I mean, Rob was an anomaly too, because academically he wasn't the top notch, but you know what? We've made it, and no, he wrestled like a champ. He was just a freaking brute, and the way when he was out there on the mat, we could always count on him to bring a W, and that was always cool. I mean, of course, the reason I don't say Dave's because you already had Dave. Dave Warnick would put out a W all the time as well. But Rob was another that came in '94, and he had an older brother that wrestled for us, so he can kind of give you a little bit of insight on how they saw things. Well, I'll just tell you how Cliff Harris was. I think Cliff was his brother's name, and when he would come to visit us as a lieutenant or captain, whatever he was, when he would come visit us, he'd be like, holy crap, you guys are having fun on the weekends and it's during the season. You guys are getting hotel rooms and y'all are doing things. And he's like, well, I didn't go to this school. Anyway, and then if it was from one of the times where I came back as an OR / instructor, one of the Simpsons. You know, I'm sure you probably had a Simpson, but one or John Anderson. Here's the one thing that I will share that not as many Army guys take advantage of or took advantage of when, in my era, that I think you guys have done a little bit more of. And that's the All Army Wrestling Program. I mean, if you want to continue wrestling or wrestle freestyle and Greco after West Point, you go do the All Army Program. And that's an amazing journey because, depending on where you're at and when it is, you could spend a year, 2 years just training and getting ready for international competition. And that is, I did it. Actually, I didn't do it on purpose. I was actually coaching Fort Hood, and the All Army wrestling coach heard about me, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come try out?" And I was like, "Okay." Because I'd already done all my KD jobs, And so I went, and next thing I know, I was gone for 6-7 months.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, yes, those guys have taken it. The Simpsons and John Anderson have taken advantage of the All Army Wrestling program, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we need to get one of the Simpsons. I can't believe we haven't had Phil or Patty or Will on the show yet. I guess because Phil's like the big gun, you know, we're saving him. No, we're not really saving him, but.
Well, I'll connect you. I'll make that happen because he can't say no to me.
No, honestly, he's reached out. Well, he kind of was on the show. We did a special 9/11 remembrance episode, and he was on there. And honestly, I mean, I talk to, Will's one of my, closest friends. I talk to them, all the time. They're more than willing, to say, hey, wives, watch the 17 kids. We're gonna get on this podcast for an hour.
Well, here's something that's really pretty cool. Is that up until this year, I generally see Patrick and their father Frank Simpson, if not Philip as well, because we go to the Prep Slam competition in Atlanta over the new year. So we're in the private school wrestling system, and then we'll see each other there. And then if we qualify kids to Prep Nationals at Lehigh, we'll see each other again there. And actually, Coach Jack Effner, who was, our coach at Army when I was there, he also was in that mix. And so he just retired last year from that. So I would see all of them twice a year. It was really kind of cool at the Prep Slam in Atlanta and then at Lehigh.
It's a small world.
It is.
We're all connected.
We are.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming on. You got anything else? Last final parting words?
Well, I will share this. If you haven't continued your education, think about it, because one of the life goals that I have not accomplished, actually is the one life goal that I had not accomplished, was getting a PhD. And as I was doing goal setting with my wrestlers this summer, one of my wrestlers, because I share my goals, and I have the same slide that I've had forever, because it's ready and it goes. And one of my wrestlers was like, well, hey coach, I see you got on their PhD. How come you haven't done that? And you know what? I had no real reason. I had nothing to offer on why I had not completed it, except for I don't really need it. But then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to kick life in the ass, and I'm going to win in everything. I'm not going to let that one thing sit out there. And so anyway, I say that because now that I'm doing a doctorate in strategic leadership, and man, it's given me a cause that it helps me. I mean, one, the Lord helps me every day, man. So that's first and foremost.
Amen.
But adding further education and nested with the Lord, man, it's a winning combination. And it never hurts for us to get an azimuth check. And if we can have an azimuth check on a regular basis, we're going to win at anything and everything we do. So,
thank you. Appreciate that. Well, thanks for coming on.
This has been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you guys for allowing me, and I'm sorry I'm not as colorful as.
No, this is a lot of fun.
We'll do a after dark episode sometime.
After dark. There you go. No, thank you guys, and have a great day. And keep up the BHAW, man. I love it.
That's right. Be Navy.
Beat Navy. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW Radio Show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.